Hello and welcome to Kushti TV, always a straight talking YouTube channel. And what have I got for you today? The gentleman to my left, yes, he is an unbeaten bare knuckle gypsy fighter. Of course, some non-gypsies, some gorgeous got in his way. They finished second as well. But with predominance, his knuckle fights was against gypsies. He's unbeaten. Yes, he was a top amateur boxer. He was tipped to go to the top as a professional. He was once an unbeaten professional. Yes, but a turbulent life, up and down roller coaster ride that I'm going to explain. Along with this gentleman's going to tell the story right in front of you, right here. So you sit down, belt up, and look forward to this story. But 25 years in prison loomed, yes, for this man. 25 years served in prison. That's a long, long time. But he was also unbeaten in prison. Ladies and gentlemen, you sit back, you grab a cup of something, because this ain't going to be quick, right? And you listen to the story of Walter Smith, born 1960, St Helier, London. Fight name, Wally Stockings. Wally, welcome to the show, my friend.
Nice to meet you, Joe.
How are you, my cousin?
Yes.
Well, you're looking well, boy.
Thank you.
You're looking good. I mean, a little over the fight weight, but it looks like you could maybe even come back. You're looking so well.
I can do, Joe, if it's possible.
Right. So let's go in. Let me start. I've got a list of things here because, as I say to you, people at home, always, I've got to do my background. Wally's somebody I know, he's a relative, but I've still got to put a story together. So a lot of this stuff, I've done some research and I know, and I'm going to look now and put the stories to Wally, some stuff of note. Okay, now I'm going to start from an early age. Your first fight. Do you remember your first ever fight, ever, like as a gypsy, as a kid at school? Did you ever go to school at all?
I went to school a couple of times, but I've mostly got chucked out, Joe.
You mostly got chucked out?
I was having a fight with the kids in school, having a little too, I mean, but that's a long time ago. But now, like I say, the years has gone by. What you're saying, yeah, I did get chucked out of school.
Wally, I know kids and all that can be a bit funny because I think it's only right and fair. You had a stammer, a stutter from a little boy. You even had speech therapy, so you've improved a bit in your speeching.
Yes, I have.
And let's make this clear. This ain't from excessive punching. This is something you inherited from a little boy.
From a little boy,
yeah.
I had a stamina and a speech impediment.
Yeah, but you as all the fights you've had, you're very much the old fighting ain't got the better of you. It's just a bit of a speech thing. So if any of you think around, well, the odd stammer comes in, Wally has a stammer. But that must have been a bit of the kids must have made a fun of that. Must have made for an easy fight back in the day, did it?
It did. It's like when you went to a school and it was called me stutterer.
Yeah.
I look at them, oh, they're stutterer. And now well, even my cousins.
I'm not laughing at the stutterer, but I'm laughing at what's coming. I'm sure they'll say no.
And then I would unleash. Oh, and put them to sleep.
Oh right, so it was a natural. Gotcha.
In them days,
that's the way you dealt with it.
Yeah, and my dad brung me up. It was like someone that ever called your name and had to stand up for yourself, and I was brung up that way.
Yeah, old school. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So you didn't take kindly to the name throwing. You threw back with punches.
Yeah.
What was your first ever fight, to your knowledge?
When I was about 12-year-old.
So is that a knuckle fight?
That's a knuckle fight. It was at school.
Yeah. Oh, was it? Yeah. And how did you do in that?
Stop him.
Done. So victorious. Yeah. Right. So
he was a non-traveller, but he was a Irish boy.
Yeah, a young Irish lad, non-travelling boy. Yeah. Okay. And right. So you was off in running. Did you not have any earlier fights on the camps with the English boys, travelling boys?
I had loads of them, Joe, but so many of them. Well, forget about them. I mean,
you can't remember them all.
I only remember the harder ones of what I've had.
Yeah, the ones who put a bit more problem up.
Who put a bit more pain in.
So the young Irish, they put up a bit of a fight by the sound of it.
Yeah, he did put up a bit of a fight. He did it in them days. Yeah,
yeah, good. So and then you were introduced to boxing, but you were always small. To the normal, because most travelling lads are big, and our family are mostly big lads, but you were fairly one of the smaller ones. So were you fighting bigger, older boys?
I used to fight bigger men, Joe.
Bigger and older boys?
A lot bigger men than myself.
And is this the same as boys? Would they be older
boys,
and bigger?
Yeah, a lot bigger, a lot taller than me, because I was a little short little boy.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was hard with it. But that's the name of the game. When you, like, if you bring up the fight boxing, Joe, No,
well, in knuckle fights, there ain't no weights.
No weight given.
You just got to get in and do it.
You got to fight the first man. If he wasn't fighting, either you bottle it or you don't.
Or you have a go.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So then you were introduced to boxing.
Yeah.
I think you were around 12 or 13. Your first fight, was it?
About that, Joe.
Yeah. So you travelled around, and you were a place not too far from where we're at now. I think Ruislip was your boxing club.
That was our club, yeah, Ruislip. Yeah.
Yeah. So you quickly progressed. At which stage you've done this sort of fist fighting a little bit at school with other travelling boys and stuff? At which age did you realise that you were good, if you didn't already realise that you were good at boxing? At which age?
At about 14, 15, like I did it in the schoolboys. I went right to the finals.
Yeah.
I got beat in the finals, but I done well.
Well, national finals,
Win the finals. I thought I won it, but I never. Normally I'm a straightforward old boy. When I go straight forward, I don't go on the back feet.
You're forward. You're a front forward pressure fighter.
At that time, I was on the back feet and boxing.
Yeah.
I was a good boxer and a good fighter.
You could do it all, yeah.
Yeah,
you were very skillful, because in boxing, for the viewers at home, let's just get this right.
Yeah.
Winning the National Schoolboy Championship, getting to the final, was extremely difficult.
Yes,
because especially when you were at a lighter weight like Wally. If you were, say, a big old boy like me, you could get many buys and maybe get to a final with maybe 3 or 4 fights of the championship. But for fighters at Wally's weight, it was so condensed and so many boys boxing, you possibly could fight 3 or 4 times in one day. Did you ever fight 3 or 4 times in one day?
I fought 3 times in one day, yeah.
Yeah, well, there you go. So you got to beat this boy, beat the next boy, don't beat the next boy, just to get through round 1, example, or division, your London area.
You're out of the competition.
It's a knockout competition. So the goal away to the final was fantastic, and to the England selectors, you've got to show a brilliant skill, because the England selectors really look for nice, stylish crisp
boxers,
punches and whatever. You can't just throw leather for the sake of it. But you were selected to fight against England.
England against America, yeah.
Yeah.
And they picked me as to fight, and the English manager went. He said, "We'll look at you quite a bit." He said, "Smithy, would you like come on our team?"
Yeah.
The squad. That's what he meant.
Yeah.
So I said, "Yeah." And well, I didn't know I was fighting as England against America, and that's
good stuff. How did you do on your contest? Did you win or lose?
I thought I'd done enough, but I lost. I did lose.
So a close fight. You thought you won it, but you didn't. But a great achievement to box for England.
I did get the bronze medal. For the third best fight there off the night. There was a gold medal, there was a silver medal,
and a bronze.
But I've got the bronze.
Well, allow me to congratulate you on that, because I mean, winning a bronze medal when you're talking about international level is a bit special, yeah. So, and it's fair to say, all due respect to Ruislip Boxing Club, and we'll give them all the praise, because every boxing club in the UK deserves praise, because they're getting boys off the streets, they're putting up their own time and effort, and they're keeping them out of trouble.
Keeping them off the streets.
But it wasn't one of the top recognised clubs, such as Repton ABC, St Pancras, West Ham. All of these clubs they had advantages over the lower clubs.
Yeah,
so to achieve this from a club at a sort of medium to lower level was a bit more special, eh?
It was, Joe, yeah.
Yeah, so, and then what happens, an incident arrives, your dad has a dispute with a trainer, so you and your brother Jim, you're both out there as open class amateurs, yeah? You're heading towards becoming a senior to gain the experience, because obviously what happens, you go junior, intermediate, senior, professional, that's what happens with predominance. Yeah, for the viewer at home, that's what happens.
That is great.
So you get to a stage where you're approaching senior age, approaching that, and your dad has an altercation with a trainer.
Yeah.
I think he puts a right hander on the trainer.
On his jaw.
On his jaw. And that results in what they call then a sine die. I think there's a meaning for sine die. I know what it means, but there's some Latin meaning or something. But it basically means you're banned. So you and your brother were banned from amateur boxing
for a couple of years.
For a couple of years. So
I carried on training, like you do, carry on training. Then one day my dad said, "I'll take you up to the professional boxing club." You know what I mean? It's up the gym. I saw no problem. Get up there, and I'd aspire.
So you're banned from amateur boxing. You're lacking experience. And you've got to go through an appeal process to come back into amateur boxing. So what you've now done at this stage, your dad decides that let's not get too rusty. Let's keep you sparring. You're sparring around with your brother and stuff, so you're still half active. and your dad decides he wants to turn you professional. Now, for the viewers at home, Wally had plenty good enough pedigree to qualify as to become a professional, but they didn't recognise junior and intermediate records, only seniors. So with your ban, just to give you some insight, you couldn't just go in and say, I want to be a pro. And as you can't today, but with a decent amateur record, of course you can. Even unlicensed now, if you have footage of your career, they'll allow you. Or there's a thing called a sparring, yes, Wally?
Yeah, that's correct.
So you get like a spar trial. So your dad walks into a famous trainer, which Frank Bruno's trainer, George Francis, and says, I got a lad here who wants to be pro. And he says something like, well, what makes him think he's good enough? Well, he was a good junior. Well, hold on a minute. He said, but this is professional boxing. You've got to show me something.
Well, there's a different kettle of fish.
Kettle of fish, and exactly. And he says, show me something. So your dad says to George Francis, is there anybody here that my son can spar with as a trial to prove that he's good enough?
That's what he said, yeah.
And he says, yeah, there's a bloke over in the corner there by the name of Cornelius Bowser Edwards. Well, Bowser Edwards was champion of the world.
And I didn't know him at the time.
And you didn't know him?
Didn't know who he was.
So tell us a bit about the spar with Bowser Edwards.
Well, we get in the ring. He said, take your time, Bowser. He said, because like he said, the man's had no pro fights, nothing.
Yeah.
Gets in the ring, he comes out, bump, 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 bump. I stung him around the body. He threw about 10 punches at me in a second. I shoot him a bit of head, or look here.
Yeah.
And then he said, he said, Bowser, he said, the man's had no pro fights. He said, what are you doing?
Yeah.
He said, if you've hurt a pro, and especially a world champion, you're good enough to turn pro, ain't you, mate?
Yeah, so you stung him and hurt him and so made him respond.
Yeah, so he said, and the official went to me, if he's good enough to sting the world champion, he's good enough to turn pro.
So there you go. Well, that's a good story in itself.
And that's the story about it.
So that's a good story in itself. So the professional licence looms. You signed up with a really noted trainer. Yeah. You go 3 fights unbeaten. So you're off and running, and then the tragedy happens when your dad is tragically killed in 1979. And now this takes, to me, unbelievable bravery. You've got to bear in mind at home his dad's killed in tragic circumstances. Yeah. So without warning, Wally just goes into London. And them days, being travellers, we're fairly illiterate, we don't read and write, and plus the fact there was no Google Maps and all this stuff, even there many phones around. So you go into London to find out where you're fighting at, your address. Yeah. It turns out you box at Dudley Zoo in the Midlands. But in the meantime, your dad is tragically killed, and you decided, unbelievable, I think, for you people at home, you give me your feedback, tell me what you think, but you decided in your dad's honour, the very next day you fight as a professional.
Yeah. I did.
Well, that to me takes something a bit special, Wally.
Well, but Dad wanted to see the fight, so and I wanted it myself as also. So I said, yeah, we go ahead with it. And I went ahead with it, and I thought like, there was John Franklin there was packed there with a few travellers. My brother was there, and I thought I'd done enough to win it. But they give the verdict to the other bloke, don't they?
And to commend your brother on this, I was told that the MC for the show said, we'll announce, because you, as you said earlier, your name's Smithy, Walter Smith, but then your fight name, it's an old name, so you're Wally Stockings, your turn pro is Wally Stockings, and the MC says to your brother, shall I announce that you've lost your dad 24 hours previous? And your brother says, no, it wouldn't be fair on the opponent.
That's right.
And I thought that was a very brave thing, and a good thing to do, a very sportsman thing. So you had a close fight. Yeah. A lot of people thought you won it. I had somebody who was there. They also thought you may have nicked it, but you didn't win it. But I thought that was. But I'm sorry to bring it up. It must be an emotional time looking back. Got to be. Yeah. But it was a very brave thing to do, and I'm sure you done your dad proud and everybody else in the camp. So moving forward, your dad was your backbone. Yeah. Yeah. He was the one that drove you. He was the one that said, right, we have to do the road work. We have to do this. Yeah. So now you and your brother are you've gone off like fireworks. You've just gone off in all directions. You're in pieces. You're all young men in turmoil, if you like. But your backbone's gone. You don't start. You really now don't start training. Your dad was a gambling man, yeah. You were introduced to gambling, and you're now not training as a professional. So you knew what gamblers are like. You're not training, but you're fighting as a pro. Now, you start losing fights on points. Nobody stops you. You don't get stopped, but you lose fights on points instead of winning them. And this continues in a fairly... You lose 10 of your 17 fights all on points, yeah? And so this is a pattern emerging. It's got nothing to do with your ability. This is the inability to train and the gambling addiction that you've adapted, yeah?
Correct.
But you're still in front of these people. Not basically, I was going to swear on camera then, but you don't really give a shit for these pros you're losing to. No. You've got the tools to handle them, you've got the tools to beat them, but you ain't got your backbone, you ain't got your training. And so this champion professional that many believe would have been is now gone to the wayside. Now, you're a gambling addict, you don't have a driving licence, and you turn to deception, and it gets you a lot of time in prison.
25 years.
25 years served.
It's on and out, in and out, in and out.
And you've got to bear in mind here, there's a man that's a fighting man who's never ever once been to prison for a violent crime. Not once for violence. Deception. I promise to do that work and I don't do it, and stuff like this. Sometimes for little bits of money, sometimes for lots of money to feed a gambling addiction. But this is the harsh reality. Non-violent crimes, you serve 25 years in prison. Yeah. So whilst in there, you're obviously in Cat A prisons all over the country, various...
very hard prisons, very hard.
Very hard prisons. Will you befriend one of the most respected gangsters ever to hit London in England, Joey Pyle?
I met Joey Pyle, I met Ronnie Fields in jail, I met one of the Craig's oldest brother, the oldest one who died, and I've met the property gangsters is in jail. I mean,
but you and Joey become good close friends?
Yes. Very close.
I mean, in jail, outside of jail, you're a regular drinking partner of Joey's, really good friends. Now, when we watch the New York Mafia films, which I'm sure you all do at home, I mean, I've watched all of them, I reckon, there probably ain't been none I've seen, and they say, we're taking it, and we'll sort this, and shut that person up and stop them from going court, or they call it ratting, we call it grassing, right? Yeah. So they normally have a knife and a gun to shut somebody up, but one of London's most notorious gangsters use you to shut a grass up in prison. But you do it with your hands. Tell us what happened.
I hit him 2 or 3 times. He went out cold, and we tried to wake him up to bring him back around to tell him the charges got to be dropped, and he died.
So, well, that was good. So you knocked him out a bit too much, really. You had to wait for him to wake before...
We had to bring him around.
So when he come round, he understood clearly that he must not grass Joey Pyle.
Must not grass. And the next 2 days, I went down to shake old Joe's hand and to have a cup of tea with him, like you do. He was gone. Out, walked out.
All charges dropped.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, well, that's a method for you American mafia out there. Anybody from America looking, don't use your guns to get 30 years, just ask somebody like Wally, just obliterate him with his bare hands. Yeah, so I think it's impressive. I don't know what you think. Yeah. So you met lots of dangerous men in prison, and somebody once told me a story. As a fella told a story, Mark Creech, a fellow Romany. He said you were in there with lots of villains from the East End. A couple of Irish travellers, tough, rough people, but somebody on the wing was getting a bit out of hand, yeah, and of all people to quickly go, and then the other men in question are big, strong, tough, rough, gangster, villainry men, but the one to go on the wing to sort out this man that was causing a bit of havoc, this bully, was yourself. You remember that incident?
I do.
Which prison was that?
I think that was Albany.
Albany, yeah. And you just done the job, yeah?
Well, put him asleep.
Put him asleep, yeah?
Well, it was over TV.
TV, was it?
He said the next person gets up and turns that TV off, he said, outside. So me bottled my mouth, shut my mouth up, or let him do it, let him be a bully.
So you switched him off, yeah?
He's a double KA man, so what do I do? As I walk through the door, I'm not going to give him a chance with me first, I hit him first, but that is it, down.
That was it.
And then the right kicked off, the jail got smashed to smithereens.
A right kicked off, yeah.
They shut the jail down,
So you started the right without trying to, really?
Well, sort of, yeah.
I find it funny. I don't know what your viewers at home do, but I find it funny. A fella, West Londoner, Johnny Layton, yeah. He lived in my village where our family was brought up in Amworth, and he done a bit of porridge during Ford prison.
Ford, yeah, I've done that.
Yeah, and Johnny Layton with I think your brother-in-law, he said Tom Williams.
Yeah.
He said he was in Nick with you and Tom.
That's right.
He said, and the same thing happens in Fold, Nick. He said there was a big Irishman. He said he wasn't a travelling Irishman.
Carson.
Tommy Carson was it? Oh, you remember the name, right?
Yeah, he was a professional boxer. He was.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
And he was ruling the joint at Fold.
He was running the joint.
And apparently, it was you wanted to watch ITV racing. He wanted to watch rugby or something. Is that true?
Yeah, it was like that. You said it here, but I wouldn't. He wanted to watch this silly race, and then I wanted to watch something else. Or something. He said, "Meet you outside." I said, "No problem." I said, "Let's go up to the gym and do it."
Can I listen to you? But can I tell you the way Johnny Layton told it?
Yeah, tell everyone.
I think it's quite funny the way he told it. He went, "Is this Walter Smith, any relation of yours?" I said, "Yeah, he is." He said, so he proceeds to tell the story. He said, "Wally wants to watch the racing. This big Irishman, non-traveller, who we now know is Tommy Carson."
Yeah.
He said, "But your cousin Wall, I think this was probably your first Nick or something. You were probably about 20 or something. Yeah, you're quite young."
First better me and Tom now.
Well, if you knew Wally when he was 20, he looked at 13. Trust me, he didn't look 15, he didn't look 19, he looked 13. And the words that Johnny Layton said, he said, "Your cousin Wally looked about 13, he said, and he wanted to watch the horse racing. Hence the gambling problem."
Yeah.
And he wanted to watch something like rugby. So I listened to Johnny Layton's story. So I said, "What happened?" He said, they watched the Screws do a disappearing act. He said, and they go outside or part of the cabins or wings, because it's an outside prison, isn't it?
That's all open.
Yeah, he said, so they go outside, he said, and we'll see who's watching what. So Johnny Layton laughs and comes back. I said, "Well, what happened?" He said, "Well, let's put it this way, Wally was watching racing." So I thought it was a funny way of telling it. Tell us what happened in the fight then.
I hit him 2 or 3 times. Bang, 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 down he went. That was it. He had enough.
So you was top man in Ford prison.
I was top man in most jails I went in. I would tell you the truth. I was never beaten, never got fucked in jail. I got beaten that when I've done them properly. But
that was all jails.
I did have some rough fights in jail.
I
did have some rough ones.
No doubt.
I had a commanding boxer also.
A commanding boxer.
A commander in the army.
Commander,
He was in the army.
How did that go?
This fellow was a very big old lump. The agreement was, down below, blah blah blah. He went, "All right, no problem." So we turned around. We said we'd fight at 1 o'clock at 1 o'clock after dinner time.
Yeah.
They made a ring. There's the whole complete jail, 500 prisoners.
Yeah.
The Screws could not get in. No one could get in. Right? They made a ring. He hit me the first time. Picked me on my arse.
Oh, you're up against your ear then.
He was no mug.
No, no doubt.
And I'm only a young man at the same time. So was he. He decked me again. And that's the second time. Now I know I've got a customer who can rock me, who can tow me. But it was all over half ounce of tobacco.
Well, that's half ounce of tobacco, but when you're in prison, you need a smoke or want to smoke.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot.
So anyway, he got up, wanted to shoot me a bit of head. I said, "Stand back, give me a fair play." Well, yeah, get fair play. And then ran a body around the head, and then he went down. He went, "Oh, get up." He went, "No." I get up. I said, "If you don't get up," I said, "I'll make sure you stay down." He said, "Well, I've had enough, I've had enough." Went on adjudication. The governor said, "Who won the fight?" He went, "None of us," because he wouldn't say him. And I said, "Whereas in that case," they said, 14 days for you, Mr. Smith, 14 days for you, for not men who won the fight.
Oh, right. If you said you won it, you got 28 days or nothing?
I don't know. I might have got a bit less.
Depends who the governor backed.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
They might have had 500 prisoners.
But no screws.
They must have been looking down like this with 500 prisoners going, "I'll have a tenner on him."
But there was no screws.
Come on, Smith, do him.
No, but there was no screws who could get in there.
Yeah, but they must have been.
I mean,
they must have been trying to see it on a vantage point with the cameras. Must have been. Cameras were around in them days.
Yeah, but we had a blind spot in them days. A blind spot where the cameras couldn't see it.
I reckon if you said you won, you'd have got nothing.
I might have done, Joe. I might have done.
but being an anti-grass, you're 14 days.
Yeah, but 14 days, you've got to bite your tongue in them days, don't you? Just bite your tongue and bite.
So the top criminals in the UK, of course, Frankie Fraser.
I've had time with Frankie Fraser.
You had time with Frankie.
Yeah.
Reggie Cray. Ronnie Cray was in Nick Review because he was in Broadmoor. But the Crays, obviously Joey Pole was a friend of yours. All of these people, you served with all these people. Did you ever come across Reggie Cray?
Oh, No, not Reggie Kane, no.
No.
And not the other, his twin, but his oldest brother, is
Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie. Yeah.
Apparently, he was a lovely man, was he?
He come in Iden jail for a month. He was there. And I swagged him out of there because I couldn't have Ronnie Fields there and him there at the same time.
Were they loggerheads?
No, because there was codees.
Oh, right, okay.
And there was a gun involved,
Yeah.
And they wasn't sure where they found the gun, who had the gun, all that. But it's a long story, that's a long story.
But everybody keeps saying that they can't really see how Reggie and Ronnie, was his brother, especially Ronnie, because they were saying how much of a gentleman Charlie was, a lovely man.
He was a nice man. I spoke to him, we was having a cup of tea and that, blah, 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 and have a chat. And he was talking about the travellers, because like, they was mostly travellers.
They're half travellers, aren't they? But Romans, I just done a thing on my channel the other day. I was surprised how many people did know it as it goes. I thought not many people did.
There was travellers.
Yeah, They were Lees, weren't they?
Yes,
Lees, yeah.
They're mixed with travellers, don't they?
Yeah.
And they was all right.
But he's a nice fella, Charlie Craig, yeah. Well, that's what people keep telling me. Obviously, I didn't meet Charlie. I mean, I've been old enough to meet him. I've nearly met him. I met a load of his mates, but I didn't meet him.
Yeah.
A prison officer once told me, he lived in Anworth, he said to me, do you know Walter Smith, Wally Smith? I said, yeah, I do. I said, he's a cousin. He said, well, I'll tell you what, he said, I've never seen nothing like it. My time as a prison officer, as a screw we call them, but a prison officer, right? They now call prison officers, aren't they? It was commonly called a screw, weren't they, back in the old day?
A screw.
Yeah. And he told me, he said, I've got to tell you straight right here, right now, he said, I've never seen a man like it. And he was in Wandsworth Prison. And as you know, Wandsworth Prison, I've been in Wandsworth Prison to visit. That's scary enough. I don't know if any of you boys have served in Wandsworth, but it's a tough, rough old prison, a very old Victorian prison.
Very rough.
Very tough, rough prison. And this screw served there, and he said, I'll tell you something right here, right now. He said, I've never seen nothing like Wally Smith, also Wally Stockings. I said, why is that? He said, he just bowls in with confidence. He said, he does not give a shit about any prisoner, any colour, any creed, any background. He said, when he walks up to the hot plate, he said, he walks up to the hot plate like the governor. He said, 6'4", 6'5", blokes with muscles like that, going to the gym. He said, he basically don't give a fuck. Excuse my French. He said, he don't give a shit about anybody in Wandsworth. These are the words of a screw, and that's a tough, rough London Nick. Is there any prison where you've ever been intimidated by anybody?
Never been intimidated by no one. Not in jail.
No.
I suppose some of them have tried to. Lot was good with size, you know what I mean? But when they come over it, they come unstuck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a bit of a shock to a little man like myself in them days. And men 6 foot, pump right up with steroids in them days, what they used to take. I put them to sleep in no time.
So you won all your knuckle fights,
Yeah.
out the ring. You won all your fights in prison. You'd sort of done most of it, really, Wally, hadn't you?
Yeah.
You know, you were a top serious boxer. Nobody stopped you in a boxing ring. Nobody's beaten you in a knuckle fight. And you've ruled prisons, not with knives, not with guns, with your bare hands.
With my hands. It's like Wandsworth. You mentioned Wandsworth, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, 2 South London gangsters. They thought they was gangsters.
Yeah.
Pat McCann. You hear of Pat McCann?
Yeah, Pat McCann from North London, a boxer, yeah?
Well, a good boxer, yeah? You know the man, right?
Yeah, knew Pat.
You know what I'm talking about, Joe Poles. Brother-in-law somewhere? Right. He was there. I was on the wing. It's all blocked the wing. Well, he said, you go in, get in there. He said, what's your fair play? Fella come out, bump, done him, and done the two of them, both asleep. Screw school come there, buffing me up. And old Frankie Fraser come down the block in them days. The block is freezing cold, very cold. No blankets, nothing at all, no bed to lie on, nothing. He turned around to me. He said, well, here, it's under the ashtray. Half ounce of blood. Boxing matches was all split. And that was old Frankie Fraser.
Oh, well, there you go. So Mad Frankie Fraser has done you a deed for finishing two. They probably was gangsters, but they weren't as good as gangsters when they realised that you obliterated them.
Yeah, but they was probably gangsters who around that way.
No, I'm saying they weren't wannabe gangsters. They were gangsters, but they'd come down a category when they met yourself. So the legendary, I love this story. You people at home, I love this. Well, I've never heard this. The legendary Mad Frankie Fraser has sorted you out for doing the right thing and giving you a bit of burn, which is tobacco, I take it, is it? And
that's right.
That's it. And just to underline how good Pat McCann was for you at home, there's a film called, I think is Britain's Most Dangerous Prisoner, Paul Sykes, and Pat McCann was lined up to fight Paul Sykes in an unlicensed fight when they both got released from prison. Pat McCann was a serious fighting man, and Frankie Fraser, as you know, was one of Britain's most dangerous men. So this is the sort of respect you had in prison, Wall, and
you had to learn it, Joe. You had to learn respect. If you didn't learn respect in them days, you got bullied. You're a T-boy. Go and mop the cell. Go and do things like that. You got to be hard in them days. Hard. If you're not hard, you didn't survive.
Many will deem you. Many fighting men deem you a freak to nature. In the sense, I mean this in the nicest way. You were a small man. You once told me. You told me this. And a lot of you people at home will probably find it a bit hard to believe, but he once told me he preferred fighting big men because you just couldn't miss them. Was that true?
That was true, yeah, because you can't. You have more room to hit them, yeah.
Yeah, well, there you go. So,
but they did it a bit harder. That was the hardest part.
When they hit a bit harder.
You got rattled, didn't you?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But you're an extremely tough man. I mean, great fighters of the past, like Benny Lynch, Jimmy Wall, the boxing world champions, they too have been reported about knocking massive big men out. Yeah. So it's not a first. But so you gambling addiction, it caused you a lot of prison. And what message would you have out there for any youngsters who are attempting to go gambling? What message would you send out there for them?
Forget about it, because it don't pay. It don't
Forget
pay.
about it.
The only place you're going to end up in is behind bars and doing time.
There you go. Well, there's a message. So don't do it. Go and seek some help, maybe, or whatever. Just don't do it. Finally, Wally, I know boxing, you love it. What message have you got? If there's a good young wannabe boxer out there, what message would you give them at home?
Is get the right club, get the right place, and the right trainer. They can go a long way if they mean to do it. You know what I mean?
And if they want to do it,
if they don't want to do it, then don't mix it with that kind of like boxing.
So there you go. So if you want to do it, get a good trainer, get a good club. If you want to do it, don't do it half-heartedly, because it's not an half-heartedly game, Wally, is it?
You got to be dedicated to it. Yeah. Dedicated.
It's not to say you can't do a bit of practicing and fitness. You can do that for sure.
But if you're not dedicated in that kind of sport, Joe, it can hurt you.
Yeah.
It can break a boy's heart. I mean.
Yeah. Well, for all you viewers at home, Wally will be coming back on my show sometime soon. But trust me. You trust me and trust others out there. You only got to you only have to find people that will tell the truth. This man has told the truth. He's one of Britain's most feared men in prisons, an unbeaten knuckle fighter. And trust me, he would have been a boxing champion. Ladies and gentlemen, it's all yours, Mr. Wally Stockings. Thank you very much. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, I'll keep giving. You keep clicking and subscribing. Next time, bang.